It's almost!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here today.
Hi, welcome to First Sports with me, Rupa Ramani. Let's get started. Right, on the show today, Indian men's cricket team gets stark reality check. The Australians take advantage on day one of that second test at Adelaide in the Border Gavaskar series. What went in their favour, and did Stark have the last laugh today? More on the high points and some interesting talking points from that pink ball test so far. The latest drama to hit the Formula One paddock is the war of words between Max Verstappen and George Russell, and that is heating up. Who is right, the bully or the liar? And did it spill over at the Formula One drivers' season-ending dinner? And we end with some heartbreaking news from Ecuador. A top-flight footballer was kidnapped, rescued after the most nightmarish ordeal. What ails Ecuador, and is the crime rate that's been shockingly high affecting the sporting system in the country? But first, a look at the headlines in Sports 360. Starting with cricket, Zimbabwe beat Pakistan by 2 wickets in the last T20 international of the three-match series. Batting first, Pakistan posted 132. Despite Abbas Afridi's 3 wickets, Zimbabwe chased it down with 1 ball to spare. Having won the previous 2 matches, Pakistan clinched the T20 series 2-1. Over in football, FIFA announced the schedule and fixture of the 2025 Club World Cup. 32 teams have been drawn in 8 groups of 4. Lionel Messi's Inter Miami will kickstart the tournament against Al Ahly on the 15th of June next year in Miami. The final will take place on the 13th of July in New Jersey. A private multilateral bank in Africa plans to lend Morocco close to $690 million to develop transportation and infrastructure for the 2030 FIFA World Cup. Morocco will co-host that edition along with Spain and Portugal. Morocco will only be the second African country after South Africa to host the World Cup. News from NBA. China and NBA's tussle might end after reports of 2 preseason games in Macau next year. China last hosted an NBA preseason game back in 2019, but after NBA team Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey supported anti-government protests in Hong Kong, China had stayed away from NBA. And summing it up with news from chess, Di Kukesh and Ding Liren played out yet another draw, the 6th consecutive one at the World Championship. The 9th game of the 14th round event ended in a draw after 54 moves. Both the players are tied at 4.5 points apiece. The player to reach 7.5 points first will secure the championship. There are 5 more games left. Right, pink in fact, has been the buzzword this week, and the build-up to this particular test, the second test in that Border Gavaskar series, has been quite fiery and full of drama. The biggest news from the Indian camp was that of their cricketers being heckled during an open net session that the BCCI had reluctantly agreed to in Adelaide just a couple of days ago. Nearly 5,000 fans turned up, and that became a bit of a nightmare. Cricketers, including Captain Rohit Sharma, was taunted, batters jeered for letting go of or missing deliveries. In the backdrop of all of this, India took the field in Adelaide, a venue that has given them nightmares since the last series, 36 all out. Though they will not relive those memories just yet, the pink ball surely tested the Indian batters here today, particularly the young and fearless. Yashasvi Jaiswal was the star at Perth, no doubt there, rightfully so, striking a ton in that ground against Australia and being one of the youngest ones to do so. Of course, will always earn you top honours. He was scintillating in India's resurrection, especially after the disappointing series that they were coming on the back of against New Zealand. But of course, we also came to know of the cheeky, almost harmless quips that the youngster, Jaiswal, had indulged in during that knock. Take a look. Mitchell Starc, in typical Aussie style, made nothing of this. He's, after all, still the new kid on the block is Jaiswal. Very promising, yes, future poster boy of Indian cricket, but nowhere near the kind of experience that someone like Mitchell Starc has gathered over the rigorous years that he's been around in international cricket. And of course, no surprising there, Starc had to have the last laugh, starting off proceedings with a bang and welcoming India in the most dramatic manner. Come Adelaide, India winning the toss and batting first, as any team rightfully should, Starc dismisses Jaiswal of the very first delivery. A brilliant first ball of a pink ball test. The ball more dangerous than a red one, with so much more patience required by the batters, but even the best probably could have done very little to dig that delivery out without getting caught in front of it. Shubman Gill and KL Rahul showed some stability out there in the middle, but Starc really had the most reliable partners there alongside him. One, of course, was Scott Boland, a wily customer, particularly when you talk of the new pink ball. His accuracy and skill was enough to keep the pressure up, and Captain Cummins too, who dusted off the rusty start that maybe he had in Perth to support Starc admirably here, managed to dismiss the flamboyant Rishabh Pant. Of course, this pressure meant Starc just kept coming back in to chip away at the most experienced Indian batting lineup. Virat Kohli, KL Rahul, and the one batter who has impressed in his debut series here, Nitish Kumar Reddy, who was really looking good there with that 42. Starc took a fifer, 6 in fact, 6 wickets there, completely broke the Indian batters down. And once again, the Aussies started this test well. But if you thought that was the only thing Australia managed to get right today, then you would be a tad mistaken. The Aussie batters stepped up in equally challenging conditions. Pink ball under the lights at night. The young opener, Nathan McSweeney, stuck it out there. The score he got to, not that massive, but he braved the Bumrah onslaught. Even got lucky with that drop chance there somewhere during his stint. And man under fire after that Perth test also put up a strong resistance, did Marnus Labuschagne, especially to that three-pronged Indian pace attack that was trying to get under their skin. Remember, this is the same Aussie batting lineup that for the last 8 test innings only managed to produce 29 runs in total among the top 4. The same batters who especially their own compatriots, the bowlers, were miffed with after that Perth test. Josh Hazlewood, remember, made that remark, that offhand remark, that really got blown out of proportions and really had a massive ripple effect at that press conference at the end of day 3 in Perth, saying the batters have to answer questions, almost hinting that it was the batters in the Australian team who let them down. Fueling comments of a rift in that dressing room, Aussie former cricketers too were rather unhappy with those comments that were made during and post that test, and quite that humiliating loss as well. But with the way the test here in Adelaide has begun, the Aussies seem to have silenced all those talks, at least for now. But the test, as we know, is far from over. Unlike the last 2 seasons, this season was a spicy affair when it comes to Formula One. It was full of drama, controversies and verbal battles. An exciting year where the driver's title wasn't decided until the last few races, and the constructor's title will be decided in the last race of the season. Now, while McLaren and Ferrari are gearing up for that battle in Abu Dhabi, drivers of Red Bull and Mercedes are at loggerheads. George Russell and Max Verstappen's Qatar Grand Prix feud has clearly not died down just yet. The two continue to be at each other since that race. But the jibes have now taken an ugly turn. It all started at the qualifying at Qatar Grand Prix last week. During one of the laps, Russell claims that had he not applied the brakes, he would have crashed into Verstappen. Russell, of course, lodged a complaint. So after being summoned by the stewards, Verstappen, who had taken pole position, was issued a one-place grid penalty. That's when things really started heating up. A miffed Verstappen said he had lost respect for Russell and accused him of being two-faced.
You know what it is? He acts decent in front of the camera here, but when you talk to him personally, he is a different person. I can't stand that. In that case, you can better f off.
Of course, Verstappen made that comment after the Qatar race. Russell did not respond immediately. But now, after many days have passed, Russell seems to have finally lashed out with his side of the story. He said Verstappen threatened him and called the Dutch driver a bully.
I never, as I said, had the intention of coming out and speaking to you all like this, but he's gone too far now with his personal attack. Saturday night, he said he was going to purposefully go out of his way to crash into me and put me on my head in the wall. People have been bullied by Max for years now, and you can't question his driving abilities. But he cannot deal with adversity.
Verstappen, though, did not take as long to counter this. The Dutch driver refuted the claims and even called the Mercedes driver, Russell, a loser.
George is a backstabber. The way he brings up all this nonsense, he's just a loser. It's the same thing he did to the stewards, lying and sticking things together that don't make sense. I'm not here to be best friends. That's not my goal in the paddock, so I don't care much about that.
Pretty surprising and shocking how things have turned around in quite a short while, because not too long ago, Russell was in fact supporting Verstappen over that whole swearing row that he was involved in. In fact, Russell defended the Red Bull driver, even took a stand against the FIA in this matter. That now seems to be a far cry away from what the two have turned into. And while the war of words continued between the two drivers, I, of course, wondered how they would have reacted if they'd been thrown into the same room back then. And we didn't have to wait for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for that to happen, as the duo were present during the annual Formula One dinner. As expected, Max Verstappen and George Russell were at opposite ends of the table, quite far away, lest it got into a bit of a physical tussle, something McLaren driver Lando Norris confirmed in his cheeky post. Clearly, everyone pretty much trying to take a dig at this new fiery rivalry that has emerged towards the end of the year. So here's the thing. The tradition of the annual dinner is not a Formula One organized event. It's not a Formula One tradition in that sense that the drivers have now started getting together on their own. It's their tradition in some way. And popular claims suggest that it is the world champion who foots the bill. And if that is true, it was Verstappen's turn to pay, because last year Verstappen didn't attend this dinner as he had prior engagements, which makes me think that Verstappen made this dinner to be that olive branch and in fact treated Russell to try and bury the hatchet, or did Russell have to pay for his share? That is mere speculating for laughs, but one thing is certain though, the matter isn't ending anytime soon. The season-ending race in Abu Dhabi surely will be an exciting one, not because the Constructors' Championship will be on the line and decided, but maybe to witness another chapter of this brewing rivalry and what we can expect in the following season. A top-flight Ecuadorian footballer, Pedro Perlaza, was kidnapped and held hostage for 3 days near the Colombian border. Perlaza was rescued after a firefight between the police and his captors. The footballer may be safe at home now, but he won't be able to forget or live down the scars. The incident also highlights how the safety of top athletes across the nation has been compromised in Ecuador in different ways, because this is only the latest incident in the rising crime rates Ecuador has seen in the past 1 year alone. The nation is struggling with cases of kidnapping, extortion, murder and violence. And it hasn't just put a big question mark on the aspect of security, but has also put Ecuador's sporting culture at risk. A report.
The state of a country often defines the sporting structure of that nation. A regressive Taliban regime in Afghanistan has put sports on the block, or how the war in West Asia has completely derailed the sporting system of the countries involved. A similar story is emerging in Latin America. Ecuador, which was once a tourist destination due to the Galapagos Islands and the enchanting rainforest, is now battling crimes which has massively affected the sporting structure of the country. Footballer Pedro Perlaza's kidnapping is the latest in the sea of crime in Ecuador. The Ecuador international, who helped the country qualify for the 2022 World Cup, was held captive for 3 days. He was freed by the police, but not before he was abused by his captors.
Pero hoy Dios les da una oportunidad y la Policía Nacional.
Quien se encontraba en calidad de secuestrado desde el día de sus familiares.
And a top-flight footballer getting kidnapped has not only highlighted the security of a nation, but has exposed the deep-rooted crimes that Ecuador is grappling with for the last 1 year. The country has seen over 8,000 deaths due to violent crimes since 2023. This is 8 times more than the 1,000 cases it saw in 2018. Homicide rates have gone up from 6 per 100,000 inhabitants in 2018 to 47 per 100,000. This is the highest in all of Latin America. Much of that nightmare has been fueled by the increase in drug trade. And the reason behind this is Ecuador being sandwiched between Peru and Colombia, 2 countries that have failed in combating drug trafficking. And the price of Peru and Colombia's failure is being paid by Ecuador. So if the situation of the nation is such, its sporting structure is bound to suffer. Because the amount of crimes happening in the country has jeopardized sports. Earlier this year, 9 people were killed and 10 others were injured after gunmen opened fire on a group of people. Their crime? They were playing a sport. This occurred in a neighborhood in Guayaquil. And about 3 years ago, Ecuadorian Olympic sprinter Alex Quinones was shot dead in Guayaquil. Quinones was a decorated athlete as he held Ecuador's national record for the 200-meter sprint event. He even finished 7th at the 2012 London Olympics while competing alongside Usain Bolt. So if an athlete as big as Quinones couldn't find security in the country, how will anyone else? The violence hasn't just put athletes' safety in jeopardy, but has also affected sporting events. Even when the crime rates in the country were comparatively low in 2012, George Michael Murillo, a 19-year-old, was killed by a gunshot to the head. He was part of a fan confrontation that happened between Ecuadorian clubs Barcelona and Emelec. Violence in Ecuador can hamper their sporting culture. The irony is that in the same continent, we've seen neighboring countries like Mexico use cricket in their prisons to get prisoners to pick up a different skill set and learn life lessons. Why can't Ecuador employ sport as a means to control crime? Because the rise in crime rates only halts the progress a country can make in the sporting landscape. We've seen how terror attacks in Pakistan have raised concerns over their hosting rights of the ICC Cricket Champions Trophy, or how the war in West Asia has prevented global stars from traveling to Israel, Iran, or Lebanon. Is Ecuador heading that way? Well, it won't be helpful for a nation that's on the rise in their primary sport, football. They are 3rd in the South American World Cup qualifiers, just behind Argentina and Uruguay. They are eyeing their 5th World Cup qualification. The footballers are dreaming of shining at the world stage. And this latest incident involving one of their football stars is only bound to put a roadblock in those dreams.
Time for Last Serve. Tom Brady's collection of watches and memorabilia will be up for auction on the 10th of December. But before the timepieces get sold for millions, we bring you a sneak peek from that exhibition.
So this is Tom Brady's The Roast from the Netflix.
That wraps up First Sports here. Have a lovely weekend. I'll of course see you on Monday. Till then, take care.